This week, I designed a speculative app. It's a two-screen real-time supply tracker for crisis response. Field workers report what they have, command center watches it appear live. And I would like to take you through my workflow. Tools that I use for this app were Miro. I love that as a quick, easy-to-use canvas. I use Figma just to throw some text in for us to talk about today, but I was pretty much in Claude Code the entire time. A few months ago, I had come out with an AI-centric workflow for how I can imbue it into my UX research process. And this is how I first started this project. And as you can see here, I initially started with the idea of triggering a myriad of different LLM tools to kick off the research process, switching between Gemini, switching between ChatGPT and Perplexity, including Karpathy's LLM Studio. But the workflow that I ended up landing on was one that actually is leveraging verbatim quotes from users. And so I'll show you what that looks like. Again, I think it is so important to do user interviews, but for this speculative workflow, I did rely on Claude Code scraping the internet for me. I always think it's so important to leave real user quotes in where you can, and that's one of the things that I included in my prompt. And then something that's fun here in Miro is you can just highlight all of these million little sticky notes and have it write up a quick summary for me, which makes it much more accessible to pop back into Claude. And you can see here at the bottom, one thing where I was sure to keep the human in the loop for both the competitive and the user research is after I launched that research script in Claude, I was given these really great files with all of this data. It initially would give me 30,000 lines and I had to have it scale down, but then I did spend the time to read it all. And so for the competitive research, I took the competitors and I took screenshots of them and put it side by side with Claude's output for each of them. Some of the most rich details that I think came out of this is that a field worker in a crisis situation, might be standing with a child holding one of their hands. It could be 11 p.m. after a 16-hour shift. They could be on a borrowed phone with a 9% battery. And so some of the takeaways for us is that their application needs to be able to sync up offline. We really need to be thinking about lack of battery power. So we don't want to be loading things unnecessarily. A quick web app is a great way to provide that. Allow individuals to simply grab a phone. Do not make them onboard. Don't even make them have to log in. Focus on reliability over features, over anything shiny or images. It just has to work when it comes down to it. This is not a time for delight, okay? And this was really fun to think about from a design standpoint because this is a situation where context actually really matters. The field worker could be outdoors, they could be in the rain, they could be wearing gloves. And so it's so important that everything about this app is really catering to them in a time when nothing else is catering to them. This is not a time for delight, okay? For once in your life as a designer, we are not designing for delight here. And so I included all of that when I had Claude create this branding for me. And so it came up with a brand style guide and I had it also create reasoning behind it. For example, it chose the typeface Enter because it's very legible at small sizes. Also consider that people might be colorblind. Something else that came out of this research is that it's important to account for users who speak different languages because anyone can be experiencing a crisis. Here's just a brief image clip of the designs that I came up with. I had a quick design the app prompt where I had Claude act as a principal UX designer to consider all of this branding and user research for me. I also made sure to include not just those initial research files, but the human-made research files that I created after reviewing that AI-generated research. Okay, it also created a nice document write-up for me of all the user flows that was important. It also created speculative day in the life workflows of both the field worker and someone who's working in the command center. So these were all really nice and helpful assets for me to have on hand. It was also taking the context into account and technical constraints as well. I think this is kind of fine, but another place where I think it is important to have a human in the loop is to review these outputs because I'm feeling a little bit of lack of control here. Things are being kind of just sent willy-nilly. There's no undo button. If I click something here, I would personally like a little bit of feedback from the system. So that's another important piece where you'd want to have a human in the loop. Do not work in a command center. I personally have no experience with that. And even though you can prompt AI to give heuristic feedback, I would strongly recommend that at this stage, you do a little bit of usability testing with real humans.